guess, as I think for a lot of people, Monet was one of the first painters that I got to know as a child growing up, and was always very impressed and astonished by his work. And I think growing up and getting to know the work more and being involved myself in my own process, in my own art making, I was always very intrigued by the gestural, emotional drawing underneath the paintings. That when you get close, that you see all these gestural paint strokes, brush strokes, and then when you step away, you realize the entire landscape. I think this was the thing that intrigued me the most about his work, and that I was always very fascinated by how he achieved that sort of the underlying emotional memory of the landscape, and that how that would compose a whole landscape when you step away. I was really trying to have a dialogue with in the last couple of months, also when I was involved doing my own work in regards, because I think the idea how a painter approaches landscape, like if you take your canvas inside the landscape and you paint from nature, or if when you step into the studio and you paint from memory, and how that relates also to sketching. Like if you paint from sketches, if you sketch first, then you paint, and how that relationship is. And I was very curious to understand a little bit more and get more familiar with Monet's process about this. And obviously, if you look at the size of the canvas, it's quite clear that he wasn't taking that entire canvas into his garden to paint the ponds, but it was also a reflection of his memory and emotional memory of the ponds. Monet didn't really want to reveal the sketches because he was actually standing in this posture of a painter that doesn't do sketches. So I was very intrigued about this controversy, because for me, the croquis and the sketches have that intent and that emotional. There is a very fluid dialogue between the drawing and the painting, and they do become one, which I think is quite mesmerizing. And for me, in my practice, I always thought about it in a way that I never wanted the drawing to underline or to be on top of the painting. A drawing, for me, was in a dialogue with the painting. I wanted both things to somehow melt into each other and have equal power over the piece, and not one to dominate the other, not that the drawing should become a painting, not that the sketch should then become a painting, but that actually that difference would disappear, and that a sketch can be a painting, and that a sketch can dominate the canvas, and that it could be seen as a painting as well. The idea of like going into a space where you don't have a horizon, going into a space where you can get lost into the space itself, into colors, into lines, without necessarily recognizing the landscape, recognizing perspective. And I think underwater was always, for me, very fascinating, the way you lose dimensions a little bit. Your body underwater becomes a different shape, and it elongates, and it loses perspective, and it gets light. You get light, there's no volume anymore. All that brought me into actually working a lot underwater when I was very involved with the process of video making, because I wanted to lose perspective. I wanted to lose the horizon, and I wanted that shapes could change, and that the water could, in a way, dominate a little bit and carry movements and carry where things would go, so that I wasn't in control of it anymore, that I would lose the control, and then allowing yourself to step into a place again where you lose control and you bring in that knowledge with you so that you can expand other territories. And working underwater for me has that sort of idea that you would step into a space that you lose the control because there is a different perspective happening. I think walking through those both spaces, and having that feeling almost that you are underwater, that you are in an aquarium, that you lose perspective and you lose the horizon line, because I think for me, one of the most fascinating ideas about those paintings for the time that Monet was working, there is no horizon. You get really lost in those vast color fields, and everything starts morphing. So all these organic shapes and those flowers, they melt into these gestural paintings. It is like a feeling like you are underwater, like things get distorted, and like you would see algae and you would see organic forms coming into life in a underwater, in a marine landscape.